Hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining NextLabs and Siemens for our webinar titled Securing Technical Data for Teamcenter Ecosystem to Improve Export Compliance. My name is Tiffany and I'm happy to host this webinar. I am proud to introduce today's speakers, David Reamer, Jason Enzweiler, and Andy Hahn. David is the VP of Aerospace and Defense Strategy at Siemens PLM Software and is responsible for utilizing all the resources including marketing, product development, sales and services of Siemens PLM to provide value-added solutions for the aerospace and defense industry. David has a successful 35-year career in aerospace and defense in engineering and program management leadership positions. Jason is a product manager with Siemens PLM for the industry-leading Teamcenter product. Jason has been responsible for delivering innovative PLM solutions for 18 years in multiple industries, including the aerospace, apparel, automotive, defense, CPG, MRO, and medical device industries. Andy is the Senior VP of Global Product Development at NextLabs, where he is responsible for product development and strategy. He has extensive experience in enterprise software, specializing in application infrastructure and security products. Andy has also led the teams that develop NextLabs' leading information risk management software and solutions for SAP and Siemens to address the challenges around export control and intellectual property protection. I would now like to turn the presentation over to Andy.
Thank you very much, Tiffany, and thank you everyone for joining us this morning. I just wanted to cover off the agenda, and then I'll turn it over to David and Jason to take us through some of the content we have prepared for today. First, we're going to start off by having David talk a little bit about some of the challenges he's seen in working with his customers in aerospace and defense, and some of the challenges he's seen in controlling and protecting product data or technical data within global collaborative engineering environments. And then what we're going to do is take a look at some of the solutions available for helping companies to control and protect their data within Teamcenter. And what's going to be unique about today's session is we're not only going to look at how you protect that data or control that data while it's sitting in Teamcenter PLM, but we're also going to look at how we can control that data end-to-end, even after that technical data has been downloaded from the Teamcenter environment. So to give customers a very holistic and complete technical data control solution. And then we will follow that up with some Q&A. If you do have a question during the session, you can use your meeting client to enter that by clicking on the Q&A application. And we'll cover those off at the end of the session. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to David to walk us through the first part and some of the challenges he sees with his aerospace and defense customers. Thank you, David.
Okay, Andy, thank you. So the first thing I'd like to do is kind of just introduce everyone to Siemens PL and our products and kind of our overarching strategy. And one of the key elements of being able to manage product information and the variance of product information, that's kind of our core portion of the business. That, along with engineering design and analysis tools, is really the core of our business. We are a world provider in this space. We service, I represent aerospace and defense. We service the majority of major aerospace defense companies with our products. But one of the key elements is we recognize that we can't provide the capabilities for every domain. And so we have an open architecture and structure that allows us to work with a number of good partners, and NextLab is one of our great partners, and I'm glad today to kind of talk about this data rights management and how to protect your technical information. So what I'd like to do is kind of talk about, in aerospace and defense, nobody does the work all by themselves. And so we have a vast supply chain. As a matter of fact, I came from general aviation, commercial aviation. I would say probably 2/3 to 70% of the cost of a general aviation aircraft is in the supply chain. So we buy in aerospace and defense a lot of our products. And as a result, we do collaboration with those suppliers. We do enter into engineering and ventures. Often in the aerospace and defense, we refer to them as competimates in some cases. They're competitors one day, and they're a teammate and partner the next day on a different product. So one of the real tricks there is making sure that we protect our technical information and that the only information we're sharing with that partner is the information that's associated with the given program or product that we're entered into the partnership on. In addition to that, we then have for government businesses, many of us in aerospace and defense work with governments, whether it's in the United States or worldwide, and we need to be able to ship information to the customer in many cases for their approval. Same sort of thing. We want to make sure that information, in many cases, we have the data rights to it. The government has the right to see the information, but they can't forward it on to another third party for use. And we want to be able to protect that engineering and technical information. And then the last major area kind of is I've got to support products. In the commercial space in particular, I've got a lot of operations out there. I need to provide technical publications, maintenance instructions, in some cases unique repair instructions for a given aircraft, for example. So in many cases in the aerospace and defense space, we have to share an awful lot of information. And this is where we get into the difficulties of protecting this information. It's not just regulatory, but also the protection of our intellectual property. The most valuable asset a company has is its intellectual property. And often the least controlled within a company are the trade secrets. Trade secrets by their nature, we don't disclose to outside agencies. We don't submit patents for them. We don't want anybody to even know that we've got it. Well, that information is the most valuable, and yet it's the one that's least protected. It has the potential for being sent anywhere outside the company in an unprotected mode. And what we now bring with Teamcenter and NextLabs is this ability to protect that information. So one of the key areas, when Andy mentioned my aerospace and defense background and in the introduction, yes, I spent 35 years in the aerospace business. So this is a set of pages right off of the United States Department of State for the international trafficking and arms regulations and violations of the ITAR. The ITAR is managed by the Directorate of Defense Trade Controls. They interpret and enforce these rules. And I've had my opportunity in my career to go visit the directorate and explain mistakes that were made by employees, relatively simple kinds of scenarios. Take an example of you have a relatively recent graduate. You've sent them through all your ITAR training, but they had a professor that's here in the country teaching on a work visa. They're not a permanent resident. They're not a U.S. citizen. And this employee is struggling with a problem and decides, hey, I'm going to contact my professor to see if he can't give me some help with this. Well, so he emails the professor some technical data, and lo and behold, he's conducted an export. And so the moment that happened outside, we had to make a disclosure and go visit the State Department. And fortunately, we didn't end up with a headline like this, but it is one of the serious impacts of today's world of controlling technical information, whether it's in the United States or other countries. Every country has some type of export control. And being able to manage the large volume of technical information you have and the large number of employees is really a challenge. Where does our escape from intellectual property really occur? There's some surveys out there that kind of give us an indication of it. They kind of indicate that, about 40% of it comes from our employees, as an example, this in particular employee. But the other one that's a major effort is I send technical information to could be a partner, could be a supplier. So take an example of I'm going to purchase a machined part from a supplier. By the way, that supplier, in the case of the United States with the internationally trafficking arms regulations, assume this is going to go on a defense article. It's therefore protected by ITAR. That supplier needs to be registered with the State Department even though they don't make a export. And that supplier gets the set of drawings from us. We send them to him. And he needs to now buy, he's going to buy some portion of this, let's just say it's even a machine part with some assembly involved. He's going to buy another part that's going to be machined by someone else. And so he takes that data package and forwards it on to another supplier who happens to be, has foreign nationals working at his company or could have been located even outside the United States, and all of a sudden there's an export that's now occurred to a foreign national. So partners and employees can make this kind of mistake relatively simply, and certainly not with a tremendous amount of, they weren't trying to go violate the rules or the law. They just didn't really quite think through how restrictive and et cetera this was, and the data, once they got hold of it, was easy to export. So one of the real strengths of this now is the ability to limit that. So it kind of shows also the impact of former employees. Many employees have data on their PCs or a computer. They record that nowadays on thumb drives, et cetera. The data's got an unlimited life on that thumb drive, and the next thing you know, they're using that information someplace they shouldn't be using it. So the ability to actually have data where it's got fixed expirations and being able to limit the exposure that the company has to this data transfer is absolutely essential, not only to protect intellectual property, but to protect the company's good name and to avoid headlines in the Wall Street Journal or in USA Today in the United States when an export occurs. And they are very visible. They have severe penalties. The company, if they don't willfully come forward or et cetera with these disclosures, you can actually end up being debarred from doing government business. So the impacts on companies can be severe, and the settlements for these to be very expensive. So the green box in the center of this is really around our major product called Teamcenter, which is our product lifecycle management tool, managing all of this technical data. And as long as folks are involved in that in Teamcenter, we have a very good security model that controls who can see access to information, which project, which program does an individual have access to, et cetera. The challenge really comes down with box number 4, where you're sharing via email. That is, at least in my own experience, one of the greatest leaks of technical data, both from an intellectual property perspective and also from a international trafficking in arms perspective. So how do you control that once somebody emails it? The file is now outside of that Teamcenter ecosystem and is no longer protected by Teamcenter, hence the reason to have a partner like NextLabs now to be able to protect that information. And Jason will take you through the capabilities that entails. The other one is just this external sharing. That is, I send information to a supplier, often through some kind of a portal. The suppliers get this information, supply chain management sends that information to the supplier, and now the supplier's got it, but it no longer has any data restrictions on it, and they do, as I mentioned in the example, they forward that on to another supplier, and lo and behold, we have an export, and our data has escaped. And not only does that supplier have a problem, but we as the originator of that information, we have a problem, and we get to go visit the defense article. We get to visit the Director of Defense Controls, Defense Trade Controls. So it is a significant challenge, and the beauty of this now is we can extend out from Teamcenter the security rights within Teamcenter, and so that you can now control this data externally outside of the Teamcenter ecosystem with the same set of rules for data access as you had in Teamcenter. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jason.
So, excuse me. Hi, everyone. So Teamcenter's greatest strength really is its ability to control access to data. access control basically defined is the means by which the authenticated users, the people, the insiders, the people that Dave just was talking about, are limited in their ability to see and modify data that's only relevant to them. This is what helps, us helps our software to conform to regulations and the customer conform to contractual agreements, etc. So it's basically, the way to find out who can see what, when, and how, and only to see what they need to see. So Teamcenter offers, from an access control perspective, multiple features here. So first of all, we offer a rules-based access manager that includes the ability to control access by organizations and object-based properties. We also offer the ability to satisfy requirements for the corporate and regulatory compliance, such as ITAR and IP management. So we have those mechanisms. And what are those mechanisms? Those mechanisms from a Teamcenter perspective, are the access manager, the program project level security, and our authorized data access, or ADA. So the access manager is the heart of Teamcenter Security. It provides a rule-based security based on properties and user affiliation. So one of the key things is, groups, projects, organizations, roles, those kind of things are all part of Teamcenter. They all what the user belongs to is the key thing, and plus object properties, attributes such as what the status of it is, what the security classification if it is, those kind of things. You can control access, so it provides that ability. The other thing is the data is always secure. All actions, all functions, all things go through Access Manager. No matter how you organize your data, or et cetera, it has to follow the security architecture that you set up in Access Manager. So based on your organizations, users, attributes, et cetera, you go define that. Data always has to go through that, no matter what you're doing, how you organize it, et cetera, so it controls access that way. Finally, the rules can be modified without having to touch the data. That's a real key thing too, because you just set up, you spend a lot of time to set up a very strong security model, per se, and you don't have to worry about the data and modifying the data to make sure it follows it. Pretty much the security model will be followed regardless of what you have in the data, based on how you set it up with the attributes, security, et cetera. So the Access Manager controls all of that functionality, and is a very powerful tool. The other mechanism is project level security. Project level security is key because you can't have one big centralized administration making sure that everybody in the all your work in process projects, et cetera, are all being controlled. It wouldn't be efficient, and it would stifle collaboration. So in order to sort of adjust for that, we've provided a mechanism for project-level security. And what this does is it allows you to decentralize the administration of projects and like work in process data, such that the people that your project leader, your project manager, whoever's running the project, can control the access for that particular project and the data owned by that project. Okay, so this would be they can control which engineers, which QA people, which et cetera they have the ability to access the project, collaborate on the project, et cetera. In order to do this, we provide a rich client interface for that project leader or project owner or whatever to be able to set up the security, make sure it's all managed, and do the fine-grained control. This also allows the ability to share access to collaborating groups, because no projects are really these days are self-contained. They probably touch other projects, et cetera, and other groups, and you can open up access to those groups. And then objects and users can, in order to be flexible, objects and users can be assigned to multiple projects. The other mechanism that we have here, and this is our main mechanism to handle ITAR and regulatory compliance, is the authorized data access. This supports has support for classification, clearance levels, and non-disclosure agreements, which is key for ITAR, EAR support, it supports all of the things that especially our aerospace and customers like that need, all the qualifications. This is how Teamcenter does it. Enables data access control by, first of all, identifying if the data is restricted and which users are cleared to access restricted data. Now, if the user's not cleared, there's the ability it does control the ability to share the data by using authorizing documents, giving licenses to those groups that may not have authorization, but you're going to give them temporary authorization, et cetera. So that has the ability to control that. This is key for Teamcenter to be able to fulfill the requirements of ITAR and all the aerospace customers, and this is one of the central tenets as a mechanism. Okay, so Teamcenter, as I just mentioned before, controls access and provides all the different mechanisms to do that. It's bulletproof if you set your security model up right. However, as David mentioned, it only controls access. I'm going to turn it over to Andy to talk about how to control it once the data has been accessed.
Thank you very much, Jason. So, where rights management comes into play is after an authorized user, a user who has access to data, actually downloads that data from the Teamcenter server, and at that point, that data, typically in the form of a document or a file, is now no longer subject to the access control rules that you set up in your Teamcenter environment. So, and this is where NextLabs Rights Management can come into play. What Rights Management allows you to do is apply persistent protection to those documents. It uses encryption to encrypt those documents, and those could be different types of intellectual property or technical data forms. So that obviously things like Office files, PDF files, as well as CAD and 3D drawings. So what we've done with the rights management solution is integrated this capability directly into the PLM application, so that when users download those documents, they come out in a protected format. And then that allows an authorized user who has access to those documents to be able to view those downloaded documents securely, either on their desktop or laptop, as well as on other types of devices like tablets or mobile devices. The documents themselves are actually protected with encryption, and we have the ability to apply authorization rules that are derived from Teamcenter, your Teamcenter access control that you set up using the mechanisms that Jason just went through to control who can actually access these downloaded documents. One of the key components of the solution that we've developed jointly between Siemens and NextLabs is integrated document protection. So within the Teamcenter environment, users can protect documents in Teamcenter. Either a user can initiate that protection of the data, or you could use a workflow to initiate the protection of that data in the Teamcenter repository, so that that data is protected on the server side, and when it's downloaded, it comes out in an encrypted form that has the rights applied to it. When you protect documents in Teamcenter, we automatically encapsulate the Teamcenter Security metadata that you set up using Teamcenter access control. We encapsulate that metadata into the encrypted document, so that we have that metadata available to us to make decisions about who can access that downloaded document. So what this does for customers is it eliminates a number of manual procedures that some customers use today to manually transform documents in Teamcenter into a protected form before maybe sharing those with suppliers or with partners, or making them available to a broader set of employees within the organization. So in the past, as we've spoken with customers, many customers are are securely sharing data with their partners and suppliers, but to do so they've set up some fairly onerous manual processes to extract that data from Teamcenter, apply some protection to those documents, and then send those out. So with the integrated document protection feature, you're able to really streamline that and have that protection applied automatically based on who you're giving access to that data. Another unique capability of the rights management solution is the ability to protect technical data across many different file types, as well as make that data available, those documents available securely on many different types of devices. So we have really two ways of accessing a rights-protected file. There's a desktop client, which we call the rights management client, which allows you to control who can open a file, if they can edit it, if they can copy and paste content out of it, if they can print it, if they can take screen captures of that data. And it works across many different file formats, including the NX CAD formats and JT. We also have our rights management server, and this provides a server-based way for users to access secure data. So they can, through their web browser, be able to access a rights-protected file, if authorized by the access control rules, on either a desktop or a tablet or a mobile device, provided that they have an HTML5 browser on that device. And this supports hundreds of different file formats for folks to be able to access securely. So this is a great solution potentially for cases where you're sharing data externally, maybe with a supplier who needs access to it, but they're not able to install the client. It's also a great solution if you want to allow maybe your own employees to be able to access some of this sensitive data from their personal devices or from home, but you want to be able to do that in a secure manner to ensure that you don't have leakage of that information over those personal devices or home computers. So with the rights management solution, we're able to do a number of things. With the integrated document protection, we can automate that process to apply protection to documents in Teamcenter, and then when we share that information with maybe third parties, we can control who's accessing it, as well as get visibility or an audit trail of when they've accessed it and what they've done with those documents that you've provided to them. The other thing that you can do with rights management is prevent unwanted secondary sharing. So if a user were to download a document from Teamcenter and then try to share that with someone else, that secondary user would be unable to access that information because they're not authorized by the policies that you would put in place. And then another key benefit of the rights management solution is the ability to revoke data access. So as this data is downloaded from Teamcenter, one of the challenges is those documents live on forever. They're sitting on maybe people's desktops, they're sitting in their email, and in the future you may want to actually remove access. Maybe it's an employee who's left your company or a supplier you're no longer working with. With rights management, you're able to, if you will, take away the keys to that data so that they're no longer able to access that information once some time has expired or you change your policy to remove their access. And then one of the things I haven't spoken about before, but is a key feature of the integrated rights management solution is the activity monitoring. So we are, as users are accessing these documents from Teamcenter, we are getting a full audit trail of who's opening it, what they're doing with it. Potentially, whether they're printing it or taking a screen capture or maybe copying content out of those documents. We would get an audit trail of those activities that were performed on your protected data. That audit data comes back to your servers, and you have the ability to report on those or actually monitor for specific suspicious events. If there's particular maybe a class of data or project that you're concerned about, you can set up monitors to alert you when you're seeing maybe some suspicious activity related to the documents associated with that project. So one of the topics that Jason covered was the very feature-rich security model that's provided within Teamcenter. And one of the things that was critical when we developed this joint solution between the two companies was to ensure that customers who have built their security model within Teamcenter are able to leverage that for the rights protected documents. So with the integration, we're able to leverage the classification of data within Teamcenter to drive access, as well as leverage the Teamcenter security model to also drive who can access what information, even after it's left the Teamcenter environment. So what that means for customers is that they don't have to manage those complex security rules for things like export compliance or the rules for protecting their intellectual property, NDAs, trade secrets. Once they set up those rules in Teamcenter, they're able to leverage those even in the rights management environment after those documents have left the Teamcenter server. So together between Siemens Teamcenter and NextLabs digital rights management, we're able to provide a really holistic or end-to-end control and protection solution around intellectual property data, able to govern the exports of data through access in Teamcenter and rights management, able to protect your intellectual property as it's being shared with maybe partners and suppliers, as well as even internally across global collaboration within your organizations. Able to control secondary transfers of this information that happen downstream. So in some cases, you may set up policies that would allow a supplier to share it with their supply chain. In other cases, you would maybe restrict that. In any way, you would be able to get visibility into how your information is being shared and used. Ability to revoke access after the data has left your environment. So even though you've given these files to another organization, for example, the ability to also revoke that at a later date. And most importantly, we base the end-to-end solution on a single centralized security model based on the Teamcenter security model, which Jason went over today. NextLabs is, for those of you who are not familiar with NextLabs, we are a provider of information risk management software focused on automatically safeguarding data within enterprise applications and end-to-end after that data has been downloaded from those applications. We're very proud to partner with Siemens on this integrated enterprise digital rights management solution and believe that it will bring our joint customers a lot of value in applying controls to their technical data as well as protecting their critical intellectual property. And with that, I'm going to switch over and take some of the questions that have come through on the Q&A panel. Okay, so one of the questions that was asked is, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit, is a question about how does one validate this system to ensure that it is that it meets the compliance requirements? So I'll take a stab at this question. We've worked with a number of customers who've used these solutions to establish technology controls for regulatory requirements like the ITAR. And so typically, unlike other regulations like FDA regulations, for example, there's not really a prescriptive validation test for a given system. So it's not like a checklist you can go through to validate your system. Rather, the compliance is done through a set of audits that the DTTC, in the case of the ITAR, will do within your organization. So it's not as simple as going through a checklist, but rather what we find is there's usually an internal organization, which would generally be the trade control organization within the company, that would be responsible for validating that the system meets the compliance requirements. So what a number of our customers have done is they, based on the regulations and the export licenses that they have in place, they've put together a set of tests that the implementers of a system like this have been required to demonstrate that they can pass, to ensure that the system adequately controls access to the data based on the regulatory requirements and the licenses that are in place. And it's a fairly complex question, so if the person who asked the question wants more information, they should feel free to contact us and we can have a deeper discussion about that. So there's another question, which is how is the data that's protected identified in the file or folder? So if I'm understanding the question right, it's how do the users know whether or not data is protected within the environment within Teamcenter? So when a document gets protected with the integrated solution, well, there's really two parts to this response. So one is based on how you configure the solution, you can choose to either create to protect the data at rest, so the document itself is protected on the server, or you can also choose to create a protected version of a document. So let's say you have a CAD drawing and you want a protected copy of it, you can also choose to create a copy of it, and that copy could be used, for example, to share with a supplier. So in either case, the protected file is given a special icon, so the badging of the file looks a little bit different. It has a little shield on it that represents the NextLabs protected file, as well as we apply a special extension to the file itself. It's called NXL, that designates the file as being protected. So it's readily visible to the end user whether or not they're interacting with an encrypted file or not. So let's see. So another question is, so there's a question here about restricting access to data based on physical location. So this question, so one of the common use cases, especially for something like export control, is being able to detect the user's or determine the user's country location before granting them access to that data. So the in the case of the rights management solution, we actually the rights management solution is able to use dynamic factors like the country location to be able to determine whether or not a user can access the information. So, for example, if a user is in the U.S., they're a U.S. person and they're in the U.S., they would have access, but if they're a U.S. person and maybe in China, they would not have access to that data. And so we can do this in a couple of different ways. So it can be done based on knowledge of your corporate network and knowing and mapping that to an office location to be able to determine dynamically based on your network address. But many customers that we've worked with feel that network address isn't as reliable as they would like, so they use different models. So in some cases, our customers will actually show a pop-up to the user and ask them to pick their country location and check a box saying that they attest to the fact that they are in that country. And then they use that, the user's response to that question to be able to determine that, and all that information gets logged.
Mm-hmm. So, Andy, there was one question on here regarding the secure provisioning portal that works alongside Teamcenter and the DRM software to make documents available to the supply chain partners. Okay. Teamcenter has a solution called SRM, Supply Relationship Management. We're collaborating with them right now to ensure that those kind of scenarios are supported. We're working with them so the solution will support those. It's something that's in talks right now, and then it should be available for the SRM functionality too.
Thank you very much, Jason. So Jason, maybe I'll throw this one at you as well. So there's a question here about it's sort of related to work in process data as well as using the DRM solution to ensure the integrity of files saved within Teamcenter. So in this case, end-to-end. So maybe, Jason, if you could talk a little bit about how the DRM solution interacts with work-in-process data.
So basically, the gist of it is that there's multiple options from the solutions perspective on how you want to store the data. You can encrypt the data at rest in the volume and have it stored as one copy. The only copy is being encrypted in the database. You can store it as having a separate file that can be shown and shared outside, but allow the original file to exist. So you'd have a original unencrypted version, unprotected version, and a protected version alongside it. These both have aspects of how to work with work in process. The NextLabs solution allows you to save the data back to Teamcenter. So we're actually working on the work in process scenarios now. It does support that, so that you basically can save the data, it gets checked back into Teamcenter. Basically, the gist of it is that we can do either situation, either the single file protected or having a separate copy of the protected file too. Integrity is ensured because the file's encrypted. It's always encrypted. It's never unencrypted. So if we have to share the encrypted file out and edit that only with the client, we can do that, or we can do the unencrypted file out and support the work in process data also. Does that answer your question?
Yep. Great. Thank you, Jason. So maybe I'll take one last question here. So this question is about integration with, asks about can the solution integrate with corporate directories, so directory servers, to make permissioning or and identity management easier. So in the case of both Teamcenter, and Jason, you can correct me if I'm misspeaking here. In the case of both Teamcenter and NextLabs, both solutions can integrate with corporate directories for authentication and user management. And in the integrated solution, we are able to provide an integration so that a user who's accessing a rights-protected data, if they're a Teamcenter user, we can apply consistent rights for that user as they would have in Teamcenter. So by leveraging a corporate directory, maybe it's an LDAP directory or Active Directory, some of the management is greatly streamlined.
Yes.
So with that, I think there are a few more questions coming in, but I think that what we'll do is we'll collect these and get you some responses offline. And with that, I'd like to turn it back over to Tiffany to wrap us up.
Thank you, David, Jason, and Andy, for a great presentation. Before we end today's call, I would like to encourage all of you to reach out to Ruth Stevens to request a copy of our white paper on secure collaboration for product lifecycle management, or request a copy of our white paper on technical data export compliance, or schedule a meeting with Ruth to find out more about how we work with Siemens PLM to protect your intellectual property, or schedule a demo. We will be sending out the recording of this webinar in the next week, so please watch out for it. Again, thank you for joining us today. We hope this session has been informative for you. This concludes our NextLabs and Siemens webinar. Bye-bye now.